Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Hans and I help expats and beginners find, analyze and invest in properties here in Germany. Before we get started, if you want to learn how to buy your first property step by step, from analysis and financing to renting it out, check out my mentorship program at germanrealty.org/services. In today's video, I'll break down exactly how much money I made with my 15 apartments in 2025 from rent, loan repayments, property appreciation, and even tax benefits. At the end, I'll show you how much my portfolio actually gained this year, and I think the number will surprise you. And just to be clear, I'm not sharing these numbers to brag. I'm doing this to be transparent, to show you how real estate in Germany actually builds wealth over time, step by step. As you know already from all of my other videos, I'm really trying to be as transparent as possible. And that's why I think it's important to bring actual numbers so you get to see the whole picture. And here's what we'll cover today. First, I'll show you the kinds of properties I invest in and why. Second, where they are located, especially in Freiburg, my core market. Third, my rental income in 2025, so we'll discuss this topic in more detail. And then fourth, how investors build equity through cash flow and loan repayment and what that looked like for me in that year. In addition, I'll touch on how much my portfolio appreciated in 2025, why I only bought 2 properties this year, and finally, the full breakdown of how much I actually made in 2025. And now let's start with the types of properties I focus on. I mainly invest in smaller apartments in larger buildings, usually 25 to 65 square meters big. And here's why. They're easy to rent out, especially to singles, students, and young professionals. Second, they're easier to sell later because both investors and private buyers want them, right? In addition, owning a small share of a larger building means lower renovation costs, right? Let's say the roof or heating is replaced, and in that case, I would only pay a smaller fraction of those costs. This approach lets me diversify across many units instead of tying all my capital into one big building. In my case, I think it's simpler to manage, it's safer and far more flexible in case I want to sell the property at some point. As you might know from all of my other videos, my core market is in Freiburg, one of the strongest and most stable rental markets here in southern Germany. In my view, Freiburg offers a growing population, a strong local economy with like universities, hospitals, and even tech companies now. And it also has only a limited amount of land available, which sort of keeps supply really tight. It's also very close to France and Switzerland, and a lot of people are actually buying up apartments here in Freiburg. Most of my apartments are all over the city in Freiburg, but I also own another few apartments in Villingen, which is more like in the Black Forest, and then also in like Schlingen and in the sort of nearby area of Freiburg. But as I said, Freiburg is really where most long-term capital growth happens, and that's where I see and want to build up my portfolio in. And now for this, let's have a look at my Excel spreadsheet here real quick. By the way, you can buy this on my website on germanrealty.org/shop in case you're interested in that. So as you can see here, across all 15 properties, I collected about 11,000 euros per month in cold rent in 2025. Including Nebenkosten, or also called operating cost advances, the warm rent totals to around 13,500 euros per month, or about 122,000 euros for the whole year. That's of course a lot of money. For investors, cold rent is what really matters, right? Warm rent includes utilities that go straight to service providers. Cold rent is therefore what pays the loans and builds equity. Of course, I don't keep all of this, right? From the 122,000 euros I got in 2025, I still pay for the loan interest, the management costs like the Hausgeld, right? Repairs of the building, the repayment or Tilgung, the portion of my mortgage that essentially builds equity, and occasional special payments or like Sonderumlagen. Even after those costs, my numbers stay positive. The tenants cover my expenses and help me build long-term wealth, but we'll dive deeper into that here in a second. Basically, there are 2 main ways to build wealth with property in Germany, right? First, you have the cash flow, the money left after all expenses. Second, you do have the loan repayment or the Tilgung. Every euro of debt you pay down becomes equity essentially. In 2025, my operating cash flow after interest, maintenance, and all other expenses was around 10,000 to 12,000 euros. And that's real money I can use. But the bigger effect comes from loan repayment. Across all apartments, I paid down about 36,000 euros in principle this year. Equity that's mine now, right? Together, cash flow and repayment added roughly 48,000 euros to my net worth in 2025. Now, to value growth. In 2025, property prices in Freiburg and the surrounding areas rose by about 3 to 5%. My portfolio's total purchase price across all properties is roughly 2.03 million euros, right? So a 3 to 5% increase means a value gain between about 60 and 100,000 euros. And that's a conservative estimate because many of my apartments were bought well below market value to begin with. These are of course paper gains until you sell them, right? But they show you the strength of investing in a market like Freiburg where demand consistently outpaces supply. In 2025, I decided to slow down my buying and sort of focus on maintaining and improving my existing properties. I only bought 2 new apartments this year because I had major expenses on current buildings, including new heating pump systems in 3 buildings, new kitchens, and several smaller renovations and upgrades. Altogether, those investments cost about 50,000 euros, but they increase the long-term value and rental potential of my portfolio. Sometimes it's smarter to improve what you already own than to just add more units, right? I also wanted to take a break and really consolidate my portfolio first, get it all in line, and most importantly also document everything properly, right? And hopefully maybe in the next year I'll buy a few more properties as well. Now let's talk about taxes. One of the biggest benefits of owning property in Germany is its tax efficiency. Every year my properties generate about 40,000 euros in depreciation, or AFA as we call it here in Germany, and that's of course a paper loss I can deduct from my taxable income. In 2025 I also spent around 50,000 euros on renovations and upgrades like I just described, right? The heating pump installations, new kitchens, and other improvements or upgrades. So altogether, I can deduct around 90,000 euros from my taxable income. And here's how that works in detail or practice. And this is just an example, right? Let's say I earn 150,000 euros before tax from my main job. My positive real estate cash flow of about 10,000 euros, which I described earlier, gets added on top because rental income is of course taxable, right? But then I deduct the 90,000 euros from depreciation and renovations in that year. And that leaves a negative real estate result of around 80,000 euros, which reduces my taxable income from 150,000 euros to roughly only 70,000 euros, right? So instead of paying taxes on my full salary, I'm taxed on less than half. And that's how real estate can massively lower your tax burden while building wealth at the same time. And here's now the final overview. So my net cash flow was around 11,000 euros, right? The loan repayment or Tilgung was around 36,000 euros. My portfolio appreciation, as we said, between 3 to 5% was around 80,000 euros on average. And fourth, as I just described, right, my tax benefit effect, 80,000 euros reduction in taxable income is around 30,000 plus in real tax savings depending on your tax bracket, right? So that's a total wealth increase of roughly 127,000 euros in real equity and cash flow, plus long-term tax advantages that save me tens of thousands in taxes on my other income. And remember, this was all just from holding, renting, repaying, and managing smartly. So what are some of the lessons for beginners? If you're new to real estate, here's the key takeaway. You don't need to flip houses or chase short-term profits. Instead, focus on buying in strong, stable locations like Freiburg, financing wisely and holding long-term. And third, using legal tax deductions to your advantage. Real estate doesn't make you rich overnight, but it builds your net worth quietly and consistently over time. So keep that in mind. So that's how much money I made with real estate in 2025. About 127,000 euros in direct cash flow and equity, plus tens of thousands of euros in tax savings and future growth. If you want to learn how to build your own portfolio in Germany, check out my 1-year mentorship program at germanrealty.org/services. I'll personally guide you through every step from finding your first property to financing, buying, and renting it out successfully. And one last hint, between Christmas and the first week of January, you can join for the special price of only 3,999 euros instead of 4,800 euros. So overall, thanks for watching. Please like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.